demonic people, coming up saying, hey, you should never talk bad about Israel. That's ridiculous. The Bible talks bad about Israel. You should never condemn the Jews when they do something wrong. Get out of here, man. If they commit murder, I'm going to say the Jews committed murder, and they're wrong for that. Come on. You think God will be up there telling us, they did something evil and wicked, not to call it out? All the prophets called it out. So look what he says. Where is it? Right. It talks about the Jew. Right. All right. So he says, look, and listen to the apostle. Now he's talking about Jews. For circumcision, that is physical circumcision, is indeed profitable. Profitable in what way? If you keep the law. What's the problem with that statement? How can physical circumcision in the male's body be profitable if you keep the law? If you keep the law. That's the answer. Well, what's the problem with that, Kevin? Nobody kept the law. That's the whole point. Nobody is able to keep it. So is it profitable to anybody besides Jesus Christ, who kept the law perfectly? So was the law profitable to Jesus? Of course it was. Why? Because he kept it. Was the law profitable to Paul? No, because Paul said, when the law came, I died. And so did every single Jew. So was it profitable to him? Of course not, man. It was the ministry of death. But if you are indeed a breaker of the law, what happens? Your circumcision has become uncircumcision. That is, you are an unbeliever in your sin and you deserve to go to hell. That's what he's saying. He's talking to a Jew, to the whole nation of Jews, not Israel, to the whole nation of Israelites and Jews. If you are a lawbreaker, you deserve to go to hell. Oh, not just the Jews, me and you too. Therefore, if an uncircumcised, that is, a Gentile man, keeps the righteous requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? Now, the question is, can a Gentile keep the law? No. So what is Paul saying? If he believes in the God and the sacrifices that God put in place for lawbreakers, then yes. And will not the physically uncircumcised, if he fulfills the law, judge you who, even with your written code in circumcision, are transgressor? The answer to that is yes. Now, this is what I want to get to. For he or any member or member of the ethnic group Jews or Israelite is not what? A Jew. Wait a minute. How can you be a Jew and not be a Jew? Paul's about to tell you. Just because you were born into and by two Jewish parents, that ain't gonna cut it. Oh, I'm born a Jew, I'm going to heaven. Get out of here, man. Nobody told you. Where you get that from? That's not in the book. Jews got to get saved the same way everybody else gets saved. They need sacrifice for sin. Nor is circumcision that which is done outwardly. See, now he's talking about the act of circumcision. This right here, he's talking about a birthright. You're not going to heaven simply because you have some birthright. You're not going to heaven because both your parents are Christians and believers in Jesus Christ. Salvation don't come that way. So if you're thinking just because your parents were believers or are believers, that you automatically become one, get out of here, man. No one gets to heaven that way. But the person who is a Jew is one who is where? Inwardly. Same thing for Christians. You are not a Christian because you outwardly profess some proclamation or some creed. Same thing with the Jews. You're not a Jew, a true born-again Jew, because you attend feasts, because you read the Torah, or you wear some hat on your head, have long hair and a long beard, or dress a certain way, go to the synagogue. Christian, because you go to some church. It's not anything outwardly. Nothing outwardly impacts salvation. Why not? Because salvation is an inward transformation. And it's the circumcision of what? The heart, friends. You gotta have heart surgery. And who does that heart surgery? It's done by God's Spirit. Not in the letter. Whose praise is not from men. Can't get it from some holy man, some pastor, some preacher, some teacher, some priest, some pope, some whatever, man. Can't get it that way. Some rabbi. No, can't get it that way. How do you gotta get it? You gotta come from God. So, let's go back. Now, you can clearly understand what he's saying right here. Paul said, hey man, wait, time out. God didn't cast away Israel, who is his people. Certainly not. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not cast away his people whom he what? Now foreknew does not mean God looked down some tunnel and say, hey, look, there's a nation called Israel. Folks, that wasn't even a nation called Israel. God made the nation. So, God didn't look down some tunnel. No. What does this mean? He predetermined it. That's what that means. Predetermined. Now you say, I don't believe that. Let me go show you something else. Since you don't believe that, tell me if you believe this one. Right here. Chapter 2. Okay. Peter's giving this. Right. Look at this. So he's talking to the Israelites, men of Israel. Who was Peter talking to at that time? It was any Gentiles there? Nope. No. Who were there? People of Israel. Men of Israel, hear these words. He was talking to Jews. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested by God to you by miracles, wonders, signs, which God did through him in your midst, as you yourselves also know. Watch this. Him, who? Jesus, being delivered. Jesus was delivered. Nobody took Jesus. Nobody didn't think to Jesus. God delivered him. By what? The determined purpose and foreknowledge of God. So did God look down some tunnel and see that there was a man named Jesus who's going to go around claiming to be God? So he just decided, hey, I'm going to pick him and get inside of him and do what I want? No, that's not what that means. That means predetermined, friends. You see how you have to read the whole book to make sense of this stuff? So foreknowledge does not mean God looked down some tunnel to see if somebody, oh, I see that hand. No. No, friend. Foreknowledge simply means God predetermined will. Predetermined will. God did that. God had a determined purpose and the predetermined will of God you have taken by lawless hands. So are they responsible? Yeah, they still did it. They still took him, and it was lawless, and they committed murder. You see, that's how it works, friends. Yes, God determined it. God ordained it. But if you do it, you're still responsible. Okay. I said I wasn't going to be explaining every word, didn't I? All right, so I'm going to stop and just read down where I want to get to. Now, what are we looking at? The blasphemy of the Jews. All right, so look at this. God has not cast away his people whom he foreknew. Or do you not know what the scripture says? And this is the problem most people have. Of Elijah, how he pleads with God against Israel. And he was right to plead with God against Israel, not Judah, because at the time when Elijah was alive, there was two nations, Israel, the northern kingdom, with 10 tribes, and Judah, the southern kingdom, with 2 tribes. Okay, he pled against, and Ahab and Jezebel was living at this time. So he's talking about them. Lord, they, Ahab and Jezebel, have killed your prophets and torn down your altars, and I alone am left, and they seek my life.